Hello, and congratulations for tuning in to the Fantasy Sports Scout European Edition, the only football podcast that treats you as if you have hardly any knowledge of football at all. Are you sick and tired of podcasts assuming that you know everything about football? Well, this is not one of them. And in fact, we're gonna treat this as if you hardly know anything. It's gonna be an opportunity to go back to basics. And in doing so, my name is Edward. And I'm joined by Julia, somebody who is not entirely familiar with the game of football, but who will be watching, or at least she says, most of the European Championship.
I have no choice.
She has no choice. She's a prisoner in this. But since she will be watching the games, she should also, understand.
And have a strong opinion. About what's happening on the pitch.
Okay, Julia, give us a bit of an intro. How familiar are you with the game of football?
Well, if you would have asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have said none. But today, after working in this industry for 4 years now, more, I know quite a bit. I'm not a expert, so I don't know all the words. From time to time, I will ask you, what are you talking about? Because I have no idea the specific football terms that you use. Sometimes I'm very much confused by them, but I know the basics. I know what the pitch is basically the field where they play football. I know what the goal is. It's the big gate where they have to push the ball in. Yeah, that's called the goal.
That's true.
I know that each team has 11 players and extras.
That's really good. I have friends who don't know this and they've watched a lot of football. And that's no joke.
Okay. I know there's one referee on the field and then there are multiples on the side. I don't know how many exactly, but...
That changes.
Okay.
And what's your experience? Because you mentioned you worked in this and you work in this. What's your experience with football for the past 5 years?
So basically, I think I just watched football just because my job required it, and I did some social media regarding most European football leagues, like the most important ones, like the Premier League, La Liga, Ligue 1 from France.
What was the job?
Just writing on social media about what's happening in the game.
Right, so it was a football website.
It was a football game. No, so I work for this fantasy football manager game in which like real football events are translated into the game. So basically whatever is happening on the pitch, you get some points in the game. The thing is that you're your own football manager in the game, and you have to set up your own team using real players from the real world. But in the game, which is called, by the way, Football Coin, you can choose players from multiple teams, not just from one team, and set up a team of 11 players. So basically, if you're, let's say, in a contest in the game in Premier League, and for that contest you have 11 teams playing in real world, then you would have in the game all the players that play for those teams, and you can choose from those players. So basically, you can have in the same team Harry Kane and Terry Maguire, or how is it? Harry Maguire, sorry. And I don't know who else. David De Gea.
Right, yeah.
In the same team, in the game. So, which is not real in the real life. Yeah, and based on what they're doing in real life in the game, then you get score in the game in Football Coin, and then you get some cryptocurrency if you're really good and you get up to the top. Basically, this a free-to-play game, but it's based on blockchain, and you also get rewarded in cryptocurrency, which is how the whole economics of the game move somehow.
Your experience with fantasy football will come in useful, because on the podcast, as the name suggests, we will be discussing fantasy football and some advice for picks for the European Championship. Now, we'll likely have a similar structure in each episode. Obviously, we're a few days, 10 or 11 days actually, away from the start of the competition. So this gives us an opportunity to talk about, to preview the games. But first, this is what we like to call in the Euro news. So to start off our section, we're just going to be quickly discussing the England squad that was just announced today. If I'm not mistaken, by the end of today, we should actually, the moment we're recording, we should actually have all the squads for all the teams. But of course, England is in the news for once. They have a very strong squad. Gareth Southgate had selected 33 players. He had to drop 7 of them. But the big news is that Trent Alexander-Arnold, who looked like he was ready to miss selection for England, will be in Gareth Southgate's squad. Other players making the squad, of course, are Harry Kane, Harry, not Jerry Maguire.
Sorry.
Mason Mount, as well as some newcomers like Phil Foden, of course, Mason
Trippier.
Mount himself. Trippier, he has been with the squad before.
Kyle Walker.
Kyle Walker.
I know this guy.
Okay, well, what are your thoughts on the England squad?
I have to ask first, why is there a difference between the England squad and what I see here in the first group, which is some team called Wales?
Because it's not it's not Great Britain, it's England. In fact, the countries that comprise Great Britain, technically 3 of them are going to be at the Euro. So that's Wales, Scotland and England.
What happened to the fourth one?
Ireland didn't qualify.
Oh, poor Irish people. Why not? Okay, so they're Great Britain in everything else except for football, where they get 4 teams to qualify and play in any championship.
Not just that, but Republic of Ireland Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland are obviously 2 different nations, so they get 2 different teams.
So Ireland is a country, and and Northern Ireland is a region of Great Britain.
I know, but yes.
Okay, so basically we have, in the first group, we have Wales, which is one of the 3 qualifying teams from Great Britain, right? And now you're telling me about a team that is...
What do you think? Let me put it
England.
this way, because you worked in fantasy football. Trent Alexander-Arnold was one of the most valuable players in fantasy football, including in Football Coin. Do you think, generally speaking, that a player that's done really well in the past should be brought in the Euro squads on that merit alone, or should recent form be counted for?
Both, but I think... how long are we talking about? Like last year?
Imagine you're the England manager, or any national team manager who's qualified.
So who are you talking about? The name of the player is?
No, let's say in general.
In
I
general.
was speaking about Trent Alexander-Arnold. But yes.
Okay, never heard of him, but was he any good like the past 6 months?
The past 6 months, not so much, but he was great before that. So he was one of the players that helped Liverpool win the Champions League and the Premier League.
That's good.
He's also very young. But the problem was that England already has a number of players in that position, so as right back. In fact, Gareth Southgate has taken the decision to get 6 wing backs, so 6 players that play on the sides, either side of the central defenders.
6 of them?
6 of them in the
Isn't
squad.
that a bit excessive for a team of 11 players?
Perhaps, especially considering that he only got 5 midfielders in total in the squad.
I think that's problematic.
That could be problematic, right?
Yeah, that's just too few. Like I remember. So there are some schemes. I don't know how you call them. Like formulas to play. Like 4-2 something 1. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So in
some formations.
Formations, yeah.
Right.
That's the name. And usually I remember I would play in fantasy football. I mean, with 4 midfielders. So if they only have 5, I think that's just not enough, because chances are, how many games are in the in total, like best scenario?
So worst case scenario, they're gonna play 3. Best case 7.
Okay, so for 7 games, I think they need more replacements for that. Like the chances of the players getting any kind of,
injuries, suspensions.
Yeah, it's quite high, I think. So
right.
I think that midfielders are the ones that get beaten up pretty badly most of the time. So I think you definitely need to have extras for that position.
It's going to be interesting, especially since Gareth Southgate's team has, from what I can see, 4 defensive midfielders and only 1 creative one. But it should be added that some of the players noted here as attackers, Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, maybe even Bukayo Saka and Jadon Sancho, they can play in a more advanced midfielder role. So, this advanced midfielder role is now part of modern football. But we obviously wish the very best for Trent Alexander-Arnold. There would have been a lot of complaints had he not been selected. Crisis averted.
Good for him.
Which actually gives us an opportunity to talk more about the European Championship. Since we're less than 11 days away, let's actually preview each of the groups. And we're gonna start with a preview of Group A. See, we have fancy sound effects as well.
Okay, let's talk about preview. Group A preview.
So, in a nutshell, Julia, the European Championship right now has a newish format. The preliminary stages will comprise of 6 groups, each group containing 4 teams.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Group A includes Italy, one of the previous winners of the competition, alongside Switzerland, Turkey, and Wales.
Do you see the color scheme here in this group? A lot of red, a bit of green, and white. They kind of share the same color. Is this based on color? Like, did they choose this group for the color of their flags, or?
I doubt that, although I remember one tournament in Africa where all the 4 teams in the group had essentially the same flag. It was just the color slightly changed, and I think
it's funny.
Yeah. I think statistically we could actually, I don't know if there are studies, I think red is the most frequently used color on a flag.
I think so too. Everybody wants everybody else to think that they're real warriors, that they have like a hot blood and whatever.
Right,
anyway,
exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, just on a personal level, I'm pretty excited about the group, especially about Italy. On this podcast, I won't make any, attempts to hide the teams that I'm supporting.
Can I make some?
Tell us about who you're supporting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure yet, but I will tell you once I decide later on.
Maybe our talks will actually help you in that. Let me just preview this by saying that Italy is going through something of a renaissance, but it's a needed one, because in 2018 they suffered the indignity of not qualifying for the World Cup, which for a former World Cup winner and European Championship winner That was pretty harsh.
I remember that, and it was a huge disappointment for all the fans and everybody looking up to Italy's team, I guess. It was unexpected.
Right now, Roberto Mancini, the manager, obviously a great former player, has selected a team comprised of some experienced players like Leonardo Bonucci and Giorgio Chiellini from Juventus, but especially a lot of talented, exciting young players.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to look forward to. It should also be noted that Italy is really living off the strength of the Serie A, which has been on the rise in the past couple of seasons. Many world stars have moved to Serie A. You have your Ronaldos and your Zlatans and your Lukakus, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us what you think about Italy or what you know of them. Do you know anything of their, let's say, football pedigree?
Oh, I remember their goalkeeper, Buffon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember he was so sad 3 years ago when they missed qualification for the World Cup that he cried on the at the end of the match. I don't know who were they playing against, but he was really sad.
So sad, in fact, that he quit the Italian national team, although he is still playing at a youthful 43 years, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
And he shows no signs of quitting anytime soon.
But he's now no longer in the national team.
No longer by personal choice.
Mm-hmm.
So interestingly enough, the goalkeeper situation is pretty sound for Italy. Their main player there is obviously Gigi Donnarumma, now signed to AC Milan, will probably leave Milan by the time the tournament starts. But some good backup choices with Alessio Cranio and Alex Meret as well.
Okay, I don't know most of these guys, sorry.
At the time of speaking, I don't think Italy has actually announced their final squad, so some changes may occur, but we're also likely to see a few very interesting youngsters, like I mentioned earlier, and I'm just going to highlight Gaetano Castrovilli from Fiorentina, Bernardeschi from Juventus, Federico Chiesa, great players who more or less haven't really had the opportunity to represent Italy at a large tournament.
Anyone from Napoli?
There should be a few players from Napoli, obviously Lorenzo Insigne, who I think, if I'm not mistaken, is not Italian born but has Italian citizenship. And just glancing quickly over the list, there's also Giovanni Di Lorenzo playing in defense. And Alex Meret, if nothing changes, is a backup keeper as well. So Napoli being rewarded for a few past seasons of good results, not this one necessarily. But I'm excited about Italy. Obviously, they're always one of the favorites in any competition they register to, but this time around, they actually have some of that flair that I think they've been missing in past tournaments that I saw them in.
Is that because they have young players, or why are you saying that?
I think it's because of the young players, and also because they seem to have a lot more skill. A lot of the players, they're very good technical players, passing and dribbling.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I remember watching some World Cup games with Italy playing, and I remember that so Romania was also playing. That was like 5 years ago, or I don't know how long, something like that. And I remember watching Italy playing, and from all the teams, Italy for me was the team that that had no sort of
System?
What?
System.
Yeah, no, they had a system. They were always on the pitch, rolling around and complaining and asking for a fault and faulting other players. And they had this reputation of having a dirty game.
Right, that is true. They do have that reputation, and we'll see if anything changes. But should Italy fail to qualify from this group, it would be, of course, something of a national disaster. But like I said, if you're following fantasy football, and we'll actually go back to that, or if you are a lover of Fantacalcio, Italy might be one of the teams to watch for the European Championship. And why not, if you're playing Football Coin, quite a few players that I'm eyeing that you might want on your team. Moving along, I'm actually not gonna do this in order. Yeah.
I just realized that I said the World Cup was 5 years ago, which was actually the European Championship.
Yeah.
Sorry, I made a mistake. Yeah. So I was watching.
But that's okay. The whole purpose of the podcast is to educate, especially people who want to watch football, maybe don't know so much and feel a bit threatened.
Yeah, well, it was actually really hard for me to understand when I was not working in this industry and with football every day. But even now, I don't know all the rules, and
Julia, I know you. You have some history with the next country I'm gonna mention, and I'm actually gonna ask you about that. And if you've noticed any particular love of football in Turkey, which is another of the teams in Group A.
Ooh, yes. Turkey is, I think, one of the teams and the countries that really, like their top 3 things that they talk about whenever they get around, especially men. They talk about politics, history, and football. That's their thing. Like, I lived in Turkey, been there a bunch of times, like not just Istanbul, like really in Turkey, like the traditional type of city in Turkey, and that's all they talk about: history, politics, and football. And for them, it's really important. Like, everybody watches football. They all, whenever they would ask me where are you from, and I would say Romania, they were like, oh, Hagi, because Hagi, although he's Romanian, he played a lot in Galatasaray, and
True.
For them is some sort of a hero. And they're really great fans of football.
Talking about heroes, and let me see if I'm pronouncing this right. Şenol Güneş is one of the most famous managers in Turkey. He obviously led Turkey to their greatest success. In fact, in 2002, Turkey finished 3rd in the World Cup. He is back guiding the team for the European Championship. Before that, there was actually a Romanian manager, Mircea Lucescu, who took over the team for a short while. But what should be mentioned is that Turkey obviously is always very famous for their passion for the game. Apart from the 2002 World Cup, results, however, have been mixed for a country of quite a large population and such big football fans. The team is pretty balanced. Most of the players come from the Turkish Super League, which is one of Europe's final leagues, I think. But there are also a few standout names of players that represent big European clubs. Perhaps the team's biggest star is, and again, tell me if I'm pronouncing this right, Saglar Soyuncu. He plays for Leicester City and he's been doing very well. There's also Ozan Kabak, who joined Liverpool this season. We've yet to see if he'll remain at Liverpool next year. There is Yusuf Yazic from Lille, and most importantly, a 35-year-old Burak Yilmaz, who was the top goal scorer for Lille, the team who managed to win Ligue 1 this year ahead of the more famous Paris Saint-Germain. Exactly, in France.
Oh, yeah, I have no idea. I'm sorry.
Pretty good squad. This is just my opinion. Pretty good squad, pretty balanced. It's always... You never know what you're going to get with Turkey in an international competition.
I think they stand a pretty good chance to win some of the games, but I'm not sure about the rest of the teams. I don't think that the European Championship defines a country's best. I mean, they don't define the country with the best players. Do you get it? Like,
not sure.
No.
Explain.
Okay, so I don't think that if, for instance, Turkey wins, or let's say Turkey wins, that means necessarily that Turkey has the best players and the best team in Europe. The thing is that with the European Championship, not all the best players of a country agree to join in the national team. And then for whatever reason, personal reasons, or, they don't need this extra stress, or I don't know. But for whatever reason, this is more of a, not luck, but it's like the Eurovision, It's a very special set for this game. And if, like, who's now the world champion? Germany? No.
France.
Oh yeah, France. Like, I don't believe that France has the best team. Like no. Like, Germany has a better team. Italy has a better team in my opinion. But these are just.
Let's actually speak about one of the dark horses and maybe teams that will surprise a lot of fans. And let me hear your reaction. One of the teams that's been doing very well in the past few years, even surprised me, is Switzerland. They've qualified for the European Championship, as a lot of people would have expected. They have a lot of, like France and like Germany, they benefit from being able to draw from a large pool of players. If Turkish players are mostly, as you've noticed by the names as well, born in Turkey and born out of Turkish families, in the case of Switzerland, a lot of their players are, for example, of Albanian descent. They have quite a few very well-known players in their squad. There's Granit Xhaka, there's of course Shaqiri, both play in the Premier League. There's Ian Sommer, the goalkeeper of Borussia Mönchengladbach. Quite a few stars, and they've shown their worth in the World Cup as well. Julia, are you surprised that Switzerland is one of the better teams in the Euros?
Better than what?
Well, better than Romania, for example, that didn't qualify. Much better.
Again, I don't think that speaks like to be the one of the best countries in Europe to play football. It's just a team that happens to be in the Euro right now. I'm not surprised. I don't think they have a bad team, but they're not gonna win, so I'm not even bothered by them.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Well, perhaps my opinion is that this is a very exciting team. Like Belgium, they were one of the national teams to have done really well in recent years, but they were doing especially well when players like Xherdan Shaqiri, obviously he's their most famous player, was more active and younger. Right now he hasn't played that many minutes for Liverpool this season or in the season prior actually. And some of their best known players, they're getting older in age. So I would say, without wanting to insult any Swiss, because we know they can be very aggressive, that I would call them a second-hand Belgium.
That's harsh. I think they should be honored to be present at the Euro 2020 or 2021. I'm not sure how this is called. I think they have a nice team. They might even win 1 or 2 games in the group. I'm not sure how this is gonna be calculated, but if that matters, they could win some games. I'm not really sure about the rest of the team, like the players that have been playing in Premier League. I'm sure they're really good. The others, also the players that's playing Germany, they're like really.
Yeah, so the thing about Switzerland, which was interesting, I guess this kind of changed the national team in recent years. Usually, most of the players came from the Swiss league, which isn't especially good, from teams like Grasshopper Zurich. But right now, I'm actually looking over the team sheet. None of their players, I think, no, there are a few exceptions, but almost none of them actually play in Switzerland. So they play in, for example.
Is there a league in
Remo
Switzerland?
Freuler plays for Atalanta. In Italy, a lot of them play in Germany, like Gibril So, and I'm especially excited by Brel Embolo, who also plays for Mönchengladbach, as does Sommer. Yeah, there is a league in Switzerland. It's not bad, but it's
I never heard of it.
Yeah, it's at a similar level, let's say, to Austria. So you also notice that Austrian players, a lot of them actually play in Germany.
Yeah, well, Germany is a big country. They have a lot of teams. They need a lot of players.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, they need players to, shout out them and make them win cups.
It's often the case that if you have a really good player, if your national team has a really great star, he'll help the team so much that they'll qualify for tournaments, and he'll get his teammates really excited. And I think that's especially the case with the fourth team in the group, and I think we should be honest, the team with the fewest chances to qualify from this group. And
Wales?
That is Wales.
Wales, yeah.
What do you think about Wales in general?
In general, I know that they have 4 different countries in Great Britain, but every time there's a contest and I see them divided, it makes me kind of want to laugh. I wish all the best for them, but like, who is it? Like, how do they?
Who is their big star?
Yeah, like, how do they pick the players for each of the regions? I mean, do they say like, oh, you take Harry Kane, or no, he was born in this city, so he's from my region? Like, how do they do that?
Actually, I think it's something to do with ancestry, and they get an invite. So, for example, a lot of players, this was the case in the 90s, got to play for Ireland because their great-great-grandparents were Irish. Obviously, a lot of people had to leave Ireland at some point. So many people from England actually have Irish ancestry. A lot of people, especially Liverpool and Manchester. And especially if you don't get a chance, like we talked about, the England squad is so packed with stars right now that if you get a chance to play for any of the other teams, you'd probably take it.
So you just get invited, doesn't matter like where you're born or where you're actually living or something like that?
If you have a family member, even a distant one, that was from that country, you probably can get invited. And it's very interesting because this has happened a lot in world football recently. We talked about, for example, a lot of the players that won the World Cup for France, and we'll talk about, were born in other countries or were born from parents from other countries. Technically, most of them could have played for African nations. They chose France, and it's a similar scenario with Germany. In the past, a lot of their players are of Polish or of Turkish descent, but they chose Germany.
Well, because they stand a better chance of winning anything if they play for Germany, I guess.
Right. What is interesting about Wales is their spirit. They have a lot of spirit, but especially their squad. They have one superstar or almost superstar, because he's been playing less and less in the past 2 years, and that's Gareth Bale.
Oh, yeah, I remember him. Last time I heard it, he was playing for Real Madrid. And then I think he got transferred last year or 2 years ago.
He got loaned out to Tottenham.
Yeah, and then I don't know what happened to him.
He didn't play that much and didn't play exceptionally. He still has glimpses of, absolute brilliance.
But he was playing like every game for Real Madrid. What happened?
A lot of people comment about his involvement and his level of fitness. Some people say that there are few players more talented than him, but that there are certainly players much more professional than him.
Okay.
Real Madrid was hoping they'd have Ronaldo on their hands, and although he has skill comparable to Ronaldo, he doesn't seem quite a consummate professional. There's even a rumor that after the European Championship he's going to quit football altogether because he finds it rather stressful.
That's an odd thing to hear coming from a football player. I'm gonna quit my career because I find it quite stressful.
Right, and if the previous teams we talked about, for example, Switzerland, have a lot of players active for very big teams in big leagues, that's not the case with Wales. Other than Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey, who plays for Juventus, and maybe a couple of other players, a lot of these are either reserves, so not starting players, for teams in the Premier League. There are a few choices from Cardiff City. They're obviously not exactly a household name, and there are even a few players who haven't actually played for the team almost at all. So it's gonna be interesting, and it's gonna
be interesting to watch, right?
Yes, in the World Cup, at least if you remember, Gareth Bale was so good that he practically dragged Wales along on his own. I doubt we'll see the same because obviously he hasn't played as well for Tottenham this year.
I don't remember him playing in the recent games.
Some would say that Jose Mourinho's dismissal was actually part of his decision not to feature Gareth Bale. But this will definitely be interesting. Julia, from what we've talked, who do you think is the favorite to qualify from Group A?
Oh, Italy for sure, and then probably Turkey, I would say.
Italy and Turkey, right?
Yeah. So Italy, well, if you have to choose, Italy, I think it's just a name that, even if you don't know a lot of football history, you would say like Italy has for sure some championships, cups, some really important wins in their history, and they they just love football. And then Turkey again, their big love for football will probably get them through the first qualifying round, I would say. But you never know, you know? Like Switzerland could be like a total surprise. I don't know a lot about them.
Right. Well, we're actually going to find out about Italy and Turkey from the very first game that's being played on the first day of the Euros on the 11th.
Yeah. So that's going to be in 10 days from now. So, yeah, I'm really curious. That's the first game, and I think that's gonna dictate a lot of the things that are gonna go in the group, the first group. Yeah.
Sure, Italy, I definitely see as favorites, and I think they'll actually surprise a lot of people with the way that they play. I'm very excited to see them, but anything can happen in the Euros, and I think none of the other three teams can be thought of as total outsiders. They might have a chance. I wouldn't even be surprised to see Wales taking second place and qualifying for this group. We're gonna quickly segue into our next section, which sound effects being used.
Which one?
The first one. We call it Boy That Stinks. And let's hear that twice.
Boy, that stinks.
Boy, that stinks.
Okay.
When we focused on the negatives. We focused on the bad things in football.
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't love a good gossip, you know?
Of course. And this is what we'll do each episode. And I admit this will be my favorite part.
Oh, yeah.
Since we're only just previewing the Euros, we don't have that much to work with.
We don't really have something to talk about right now.
But today, like we mentioned, the England squad got announced.
Oh.
And because Gareth Southgate had initially called up 33 players, he had to let go of 7.
Wow.
Boy, that stinks. You wouldn't want to be one of those players. The players in question are Aaron Ramsdale, Ben Godfrey, Ben White, Jesse Lingard, James Ward-Prowse, Greenwood, and Ollie Watkins. It should be noted that Johnny Greenwood was actually took himself out of the list because he has an injury. But the other 6 didn't have that luxury. How do you think a player that gets cut out feels?
Oh, terrible for sure. I don't understand why they did this. Like, were they asked to provide a list of names before having the official team? Like, why would they do that? You know, like we have this list of 33 players or how many. So here's our list, so everybody can see it, the entire world can see it, and then sorry, for the official team, we are only allowed to have 26 players, so the rest of you, we're sorry. Like, why would they announce the big team in the first place? Like, why didn't they just shut up?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think
Because
it
it's
should be.
terrible.
I should know that usually before this tournament, they used to call up 23 players. So 26 is quite a big number already. But they allow them a provisional squad, probably because they might think, somebody gets injured ahead of the Euro. I think they still have an opportunity to replace them. And being that this year was so busy, it makes sense in that respect. But 33 players is a lot. I mean,
a lot, yeah.
Gareth Southgate had to cut 7.
And a lot of players to disappoint. So why would you do that to your players?
I'm going to give you some even more,
What?
oh boy, that stinks news.
No.
England will be playing Austria, I think, in a friendly match in a few days' time.
Why?
No, all of the teams will be playing friendlies. But the big news is that Jesse Lingard, who is not in the squad for the Euros, will actually represent England in this friendly and might start the game. A lot of people thought that this was quite peculiar, since he won't be going to the Euros. And since most people think that, these friendlies are actually used as a way to test your team.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I think this is some sort of arrangement between the coach and the players. Because if you choose players that didn't make it to the Euros, it's like...
This is like a consolation prize,
yes,
right?
This is like offering them the second prize medal. Like, okay, so I cannot take all of you to play in the Euros, but we have this friendly game and you can play in that game. And I'm like, I don't know. Is there any benefit for the players to play in the friendlies? Like, why would they do that? I mean, if I were Lingard, I would be pretty pissed, right?
Yeah, in fact, all of the 7 players were asked if they'd like to leave. They're currently with the England squad, and they answered no.
Oh.
Which, to me, I kind of get the feeling that, I get the idea that this is, a team effort and they're trying to support each other. But it's really weird. Would you really want to stick around? It's kind of like being in a relationship and you break up and you continue living together. It's just odd.
It's just very odd. And yeah, I'm sorry for them. But I think this was a rather... shitty move on the coach side. Yeah, so I blame him for this whole mess entirely, and the players are entitled to be upset.
We will be moving to our final point of the podcast, and it's one that we're actually going to focus a lot during the Euros. It's in our name after all, and this is our round of fantasy football advice. Sound effects. Yeah, there you go. Love that. It's got like a mild applause. Not very excited, but
Like in the Euros.
Right. Well, I'll be completely honest with you. I've prepared nothing for this segment, but we'll just wing it. Let me just tell you about fantasy football in general. From what I know, there will be a few alternatives for fantasy enthusiasts. Across the Euros, UEFA has an official game, where you choose players that need to fit into a certain budget. That looks pretty good.
What is that?
It's the official fantasy game of UEFA. So I think it's called Euro Fantasy.
Okay. Can we play that for free?
You can play that for free.
Okay.
And you can choose from any of the players. Each player is given a certain transfer fee. And you have to make sure that when you add all of those up, I think they...
you have a budget.
They fit within I think it's an 80 million budget.
Okay.
That was interesting. Or is it 100 million? Not sure, but a pretty interesting proposition.
Can you win something? Anything from it?
I'm not sure that you can. I think the very top prizes, but you'd expect there will be millions of them, win things like, don't quote me on this one, but things like T-shirts and PlayStations, things like that.
Okay.
So
merchandise.
objects.
Yeah.
There are a few others that might have Euro matches, we'll actually notify you of those if we find them interesting. But the one that does stick out, and they do have all of the matches, is the company you worked for before and that you mentioned.
Oh, Football Coin.
Football Coin,
Yeah.
as far as I know, they will be hosting all of the European matches in fantasy football form.
Yeah, and I think this is a wonderful opportunity, even for people who are not that, acquainted with the football players and game in general, and also for those crypto enthusiasts, because as I mentioned, they have this entire game on blockchain, which makes the whole game really transparent, and the prizes and everything. And they have this economy in the game using their own cryptocurrency, which you can then exchange on cryptocurrency exchanges. I think it's a wonderful bridge between the world of fantasy sports and cryptocurrency, which has been on the rise for the past months, and a lot of people have been asking and questioning about how to get into crypto. So this is one free way to join the crypto wave. So yeah.
Any advice that I would give? Sure. Of course, in Football Coin, you have free and paid player cards. So if you are looking to play absolutely free, I would recommend that you have a look and maybe scout the Turkish team, especially. Most of their players are
Free.
active in the Turkish Super League, and they are free, from what I know, the exception, and he might be worth paying for, or at least getting on a lease in Football Coin, which means paying for one match or 1 week, and that is Burak Ilmaz. He plays for Lille, and he's been in top form. A few others like Cengiz Ünder, but many of the players for Turkey and for Wales will be entirely free, so check out the game and see how you can get them there. But if you're looking for, top performance, top rated players that can get you a lot of points and can win you prizes, because from what I know, in Football Coin you can win cryptocurrency by playing fantasy football.
As I mentioned, the top managers that are in the game and are registered for a certain competition with their teams, they win something. Depends on the game, so it really depends. I cannot really know, but you can win a certain amount of cryptocurrency. For instance, like 1 week ago when I entered one of my last teams, I won like 73 football coins, for doing nothing, and I don't have any paid players. I had some, but I rent them out now, and I don't have them anymore. But that's okay. We have our football experts right here telling us where to find those precious gems called football players to use in our fantasy game. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely keep an eye out, and probably throughout the tournament for Italy. I'm especially excited by the defenders and midfielders, and I know what they score in Fantacalcio and in Football Coin. I really do watch them. I'm a big fan, for example, of Francesco Acerbi from Lazio. That's going to be one of my top picks. I hope he plays, and he did in the European qualifiers. But also, it's good to look out for Bonucci and Chiellini, obviously, two of the greatest defenders of their generation. Really excited by midfielding talent. We don't know exactly who's going to start the games, but Manuel Locatelli, Nicola Barella from Inter, even Marco Verratti from PSG. They're just very good all-round passing players. They can pass the ball really accurately, they can create assists, and they can score. And lastly, why not even the strikers? Federico Chiesa has had a great season for Juventus. So yeah, definitely they would be among my top picks. I would expect Switzerland to surprise us as well. My biggest pick there, if you can get him in Football Coin, absolutely is Ian Sommer. I would expect that by the end of the groups, Sommer is going to be one or maybe the very best goalkeeper. he's also going to have a lot of work to do. So if you know your fantasy football, a system like Football Coin rewards shots saved for a goalkeeper. So a goalkeeper who just hangs around and doesn't have any work to do, that's not really going to receive that many points. Believe me, Ian Zomer is going to have a lot of work to do, and he's a great player. Others like Granit Xhaka and Brel Embolo from Mönchengladbach are also worth a watch.
So basically, some players from Turkey. With some luck, Italy has a good free players, and Switzerland, right?
Yeah, a lot. So the only team that I think should have mostly paid players, but you can probably get them in Football Coin on a lease or in another system just to watch out for, is Italy. The rest of the players should be pretty much free in Football Coin. And if you're playing UEFA Fantasy Football, why not? I really think you could actually take a look at Italy. I expect them to qualify and to do very well. So for the UEFA fantasy system is that you pick one team and that represents you throughout the competition. So you have to pay attention to what your team might do in future matches.
Okay.
If that's the case, I definitely think take a look at Italy. Julia, do you think you've learned more about fantasy football from today's talk?
Is there a right and wrong answer to this?
There is not.
There is not. Great, because you mentioned a lot of players, and to be completely honest, I don't think I'm gonna remember that. I think we should stick to the basics, because I'm not really good with names, and I'm sure a lot of people are not that good either. So basically,
let's simplify it.
Yeah, let's simplify it to the maximum. I think as in most football fantasy games, you can sort out the players with from certain teams.
This is in Football Coin, you mean?
And I think in other games too.
Okay.
But in Football Coin, for instance, it's a good example. You can choose the team that you want. So basically, just go for Turkey, go for Italy doesn't have free players that much, but maybe you can rent them out. Or Switzerland.
Definitely,
and you can also see choose players based on the points that they made, like last game. Obviously, for the first games, they will all have 0, right? They will have a score of 0 because these are going to be the first games in the championship, so there will be no last match in that particular championship. That's it. When are we going to talk about the next groups?
We will be doing that in the next day. So our objective is to actually preview all of the groups ahead of the first match of the Euros.
And we have how many groups?
We have 6 groups.
Wow. So
UEFA has actually taken the decision to increase the number of teams that take part in the Euros. You're obviously looking at Group F, which should be exciting.
Yes, it is exciting.
It is pretty exciting.
I cannot wait to watch this.
Yeah, actually, let me close today's episode by asking: do you have a team favorite? Obviously, Romania has not qualified.
It's okay. I think I would. I'm really interested in seeing Germany play and seeing Portugal, and they are in the same group, so that's gonna be really exciting. And as a big coincidence, France is in the same group as they are. So basically, the last group, Group F, has France in it, Germany, Hungary, and Portugal. And this is gonna be really exciting because chances are that one of the winners is in this group, I think.
I think you're very much right, and I won't spoil it for everyone, but
so I cannot
my
wait.
favorite team is playing in Group F as well.
Okay, don't tell us just yet, but I cannot wait to have the podcast about this group. So
that's about enough for our first episode of Fantasy Sports Scout European Edition. And next time around, we will be discussing Group B and whatever happens to happen in football until then. Until then, keep a lookout for the squads and your scouting, and we will be seeing you around.